welcome to the Mayor's Corner. Today we are very privileged and honored to have our state representative joining the show, Linda Dean Campbell. Linda, welcome. I know you've been here before, but not for quite some time, so thank you for being here, pal.
Good to be here.
You know, we usually start the show by talking about the tremendous job Karen Hayden does as the director. Today, unfortunately, we have George Sione in the director's chair, and let me tell you, he has been barking out the orders and lashing the staff mercilessly. The man is drunk with power, and we'll deal with that at a later time. But for now, let's go. Let's go to you. You know what we do when we start these shows, Linda. I know you've been on before, and I know the city of Methuen knows you very well. But for those few that might not know you, you have a long history of public service before you were a state rep, including a tenure in the city council. And before that, being a community activist and doing things for your community that you thought were good. Let's just talk a little bit about that. How did you get started in this business?
Well, I think my neighbors actually got me started in this business, which probably happened to you as well at some point. I live way over in the west side of town. We have quite a bit of open space out there, and we have some development, a residential development that backs right up to Drake-it. And Drake-it was approached to put in a natural gas-fired power plant up there, an enormous power plant. And the noise, the issues related to that, and also the issues related to the Merrimack River. I started out, I guess, on an environmental issue.
Yes.
I was interested in, I just happened to be reading the newspaper, and they indicated that they were going to be taking large sums of water out for free from the Merrimack to cool this plant. So that kind of piqued my interest. It was in the front page of the Tribune, and then it started to proceed forward, and I went to the meetings, and lo and behold, a lot of Methuen neighbors of mine were very upset because this was really being plopped down right in the middle of a residential section. So it wasn't I think, a place that would have been considered by the state or any governmental authority if they, had been doing this on their own. So that's how it all started. And
you worked with Andover residents as well. So this was a regional effort to stop the power plant, and most importantly, maybe a first dip of your toes in the water, but you were successful.
We were successful, and it was the result of a movement that started. We started off with just a couple of representatives from Methuen and Andover. Then it grew into Lawrence. Once people got hold of the idea that this would have an impact on the water temperature and therefore on any wildlife in the river, and then also the amount of water that was being drained out. Once that got out into the press, it took off, and we ended up being the Merrimack Valley Residents for the Environment. It was a large group, and it lasted quite a few years.
Yeah. And then, of course, you ran for city council.
Right.
Obviously, you and I served together. 6 years in the council, 6 of the best years of your life.
Absolutely.
And but let's talk a little bit about that. You got acquainted with city council. You did, honestly, all of the difficult chores on that council seemed to fall on your shoulders, and we were happy to put them there. But let's talk a little bit about that. You got into local government, and how did you find it? Did you like the city council?
I liked the debates.
Yes.
The debates were fun. The actual impact that you had on people's lives and people's neighborhoods, I think you know as well as I do, the further up you go, the less ability you have to really talk to people on a regular basis. And I do miss that tremendously. I really do.
Yeah.
And my son is in high school now as opposed to grammar school, so those contacts, that's politics at its best.
It certainly is. And now, obviously, you were in a competitive race for state representative. You ran a great race and you won. And as you stand for re-election, how many terms have you served as state representative?
I have served 2 terms, so that's a total of 4 years.
Yep.
And as with your job, those years just roll around real quick.
Really quickly,
yes.
They do. Let's talk about that. I know we did a little bit of the bio here, but in this day and age, there is a lot of, for lack of a better term, action on Beacon Hill. There are a lot of people out there, let's face it, that are a little bit angry with Beacon Hill. But we want to talk a little bit about some of the things that have happened there. We're going to go through as many as we can because we may not be able to get through them all. But I know that one of the things that we were talking about before we went on the air was the texting ban.
Right.
And I'm going to, if you don't mind, I'm going to hopscotch from subject to subject. Maybe there won't be any rhyme or reason, but we can get to some of the controversial stuff maybe a little bit later. But the texting ban has some controversy in and of itself. What about that? Were you for that?
I was for it. I think the legislation probably should have gone a little bit further. However, it was a fiery debate on this,
Yes.
Particularly how it pertained to elder drivers, because it's not just about texting. It's about drivers over the age of 75 requiring now to have a vision test and to go down to the registry itself to renew their license, which I think was a decent compromise, and I think that'll help. And I also think, you know, the provisions pertaining to younger drivers, whereby they cannot use that cell phone, they cannot use whatever electronic device they might like to call it.
Yeah.
I think that'll be a huge help. A lot of states right now are looking to up the requirements for driver training for young people, simply because there's a lot more to be careful about out there.
Yep.
So I think just taking these devices away from them, it makes it easier for the police. You know, how old are you?
Yeah.
Okay, you had this in your hand. Okay. Guilty as charged.
Yeah, yeah.
So I think that's going to. I think it's going to save lives without a doubt.
I know that it was a fiery debate, and getting your position on that is important.